to the Soul Mirror, where inner light meets lived truth. I am your host, Shreya. Today's guest, Sharon Neilson, known as EternalHer, is a reasoned, seasoned RN and holistic wellness coach who is rewriting the script on feminine recovery. With over 30 years in healthcare and heart rooted in sacred science, Sharon brings a fresh lens to today's most urgent topic, the surge in mental health struggles and the fragile state of our nervous system. Together, we'll explore how women can reconnect their inner glow, not just coping, by radically reclaiming well being. So, welcome, Sharon. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Sharon, you have seen the healthcare system from both clinical and holistic angles. What do you believe is fueling this rising crisis in women's health and nervous system health today?
Yeah. Look, I think it is very complex. There's no one single answer, and I think that unfortunately we're sold that there's maybe one solution. And certainly my experience, like you said, I've worked in healthcare and still continue to work in the emergency department, sort of as a person who sort of coordinates a surgical team. And it is really interesting that women in particular, I think, have held many, many roles for a long time. I think we've been sold stories of what we should be doing,
Hmm. Yes.
and then, uh, but at some stage we get to a point in our lives where we're like, wait a second, is this my life or is it
Yeah.
their life, so to speak? And I think then that women we don't know, we're not articulated with or don't have the toolkit, to sort of work out how do we then step out of that without completely demolishing what is around us. And I do think that as women, we're very emotional beings, we're very spiritual beings, we're very cognizant of our effect on other people, and that then keeps us stuck. I think in a place of we should be here, I should be doing this, I should look after these people first, and my needs are not necessarily deemed as important. But I think that there is so much stuff that now just takes our concentration away from us. So, having said all that, I don't know what the answer is, but I kind of I felt like I think my own personal journey in and probably not really understanding that maybe I had an underlying sort of element of depression through my life, but not really knowing why or how, because as a personality you kind of just get on with it, you go and train or you hang out with some friends or have a glass of wine, that kind of thing. And then I then went through a divorce from a very unhappy marriage. And the divorce itself was not great, but it was kind of one of those things where I probably should have done it 10 years earlier, but I had small children. I didn't want to impact on the children. And it just really opened my eyes to, even though the fact that I work in healthcare, I'm cognizant of my own health.
Mm.
I work with people like this all the time, and yet I still struggled myself. And that health in itself is very holistic. I don't think that anyone at the moment is having these conversations about the complexity that women are facing and looking at it from a a holistic perspective that,
Mm.
yes, we've got hormonal changes and yes, we have children and yes, but you can't put them all into one box. So I think that's a long-winded way of answering your question, but, but, but it's just very complex.
Yes, yes, yes. I think you answered that so beautifully, and that misalignment between treatment and truth is so often where suffering hides and where healing can begin. And
Yes.
also, you speak of feminine recovery and the eternal glow. So, what does that mean, especially in the context of nervous system resilience?
Yes. Um, I think that the feminine is something that I've been working on quite significantly myself. And I didn't actually realize the significance of my own nervous system and that constant push that we have, which is often the masculine within us that is sort of driving our spiritual sort of decisions, I guess. Having worked in the emergency, worked in critical care, like I'm very much a person who can assess people, you're intervening quickly, you're communicating within large teams. And, you know, to transition that then into life, you become very self-resilient. Um, and I think the thing is that I think as women, I think we need to learn where that bridge is between being that person, but also being able to soften and allow other people to help us.
Yeah.
And that can be really scary because potentially the male models that we've had in our lives haven't provided that security for us.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a role model for that. And again, that's then another path that we kind of have to undertake on our own to try and work out where does that sit within my own ethos and my own soul as to, yeah, I can push here, but maybe I shouldn't be pushing there. So I feel for myself and my own journey is still an ongoing thing. And that's one of the things that I think is very strong within my own coaching business is that I am very open to the fact that I'm learning as I go as well, because I think it's important that we stay open to personal development. And I think this feminine awakening is again very multifaceted because it's kind of like, how does your nervous system react that's different to somebody else? And we're all such unique beings and beautiful beings that we kind of just survive, so to speak. And I really want women to be able to thrive. So the eternal glow is the point of where you know, you finally actually start to come home to yourself, even though you may not know what that looks like. But I think that you start to develop that inner self-confidence around, you know, I'm comfortable. I can, you know, I enjoy my environment quite naturally. I'm not compensating for something and I'm eating the food that I want to eat, for instance. So, you know, if we've all been married or we've got men in our lives, we know that they tend to eat a very heavy diet of, you know, carbohydrate and protein and that sort of thing. And I know that I have never enjoyed that type of food. Like I love my greens and my vegetables and all of that sort of thing. And I know I have to eat protein, but it's been like quite the relief to sort of be able to go, you know what, no one's telling me what I have to eat. But I don't want women to have to be divorced to then kind of be able to have that conversation. They should be able to have that conversation with their partner and be able to say and have the confidence and the self drive to say, I'm doing this for me, not because I've been told to, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
And I think it's empowering to think that resilience isn't just a result, it's a return, a connection.
Yeah.
And let's talk about science and spirit. So, how do you merge nervous system science with sacred feminine wisdom in your work?
Okay. Look, that's a great question. Uh, and I think the nervous system, so again, I'll go back to my own example of not really understanding my own nervous system. So again, working in these environments that you kind of think that like I know I've always been sort of a bit of I'm self-initiated, self-motivated sort of individual. I've spent a lot of years training and doing a lot of sort of physical activity that I thought was the right thing for me. But potentially, you know, when you have a really busy day at work, and you're having to make lots of decisions. And I'm sure there are women that would relate to this, and you've been in meetings, or you've had to do a presentation, or you've done something that has taken a lot from you and maybe has put you on that edge with your nervous system in relation to your confidence and all that sort of thing, but you've done it. Part of our response is that we then go home, and then because your nervous system is sitting in this heightened fight or flight mode, we then continue to push through. So we may then go and do, an exaggerated process of exercise, or, go for a really long run or something. And I think because I used to think, oh yeah, I'm burning this energy off, right? It was kind of that mindset. And really all we're doing is just maintaining the fight or flight. We're not really trying to bring in our parasympathetic nervous system back in to allow our body to re-regulate. So from a science perspective, I guess what you're looking at is the fact that we have to kind of, respond to these situations every day, but we're not running from a tiger anymore. But we also need to understand that makes our body then change. So our body starts to burn fuel differently, our blood sugar level goes up, all of that kind of thing. So I think that I started to sort of try and do the extra sort of work around calming my system before I then would do another a part of exercise. And the other thing that was happening was that I actually started to do some restorative yoga. So that was something that I felt quite strongly, and it used to sit within me that I used to feel like I needed to go and do some yoga. But at the time, my head was too busy and I had children, and I thought, this is the last thing I need to do, kind of thing. But actually through the restorative yoga process, I then kind of found that I had a bit of a breakthrough, physically, where my whole nervous system kind of released. And from there, I've learnt the physiology of how fragile, and that's why I kind of said to you, it's this fragile situation that occurs. So I don't know if that's really fully answered the question for you, but I'm hoping that starts a conversation anyway. Yeah.
Yes, that's a beautiful answer. I think I've explained that beautifully. And that bridge between the soma and soul, that's the medicine that we have been betting for. And
Yeah.
also, in some stages of women, like hyperproductivity and constant connectivity, how can women begin to rewire the nervous system gently without feeling guilt or shame?
Ah, perfect question. Bless you. uh,
I'm sorry.
I
Sorry.
I actually think the biggest thing that women can do is actually find that space. So they just need to find, it might start with just 10 minutes in a week because they're not there yet, and they're not understanding. But if they can feel themselves on fire, so to speak, then I think the thing is that they just need to find that 10 minutes at some stage in the week where they can go and just go for a walk, go perhaps where they can just put their feet on the ground, the grounding kind of thing. Take your shoes off and let the grass, or just sit under a tree and listen to a podcast like this, you know. It's just that moment where they just allow themselves to just be themselves. And, I started to do it with walking to the park, and I would grab a coffee on the way on a Saturday morning. And I just started doing that myself, kind of initially because I found my week was too busy. I was too distracted, and I would get into bed at night and then kind of go, oh my God, I didn't find 10 minutes for myself, blah, blah, blah. But that can be one way for them to do it without them penalizing or creating that conflict within themselves. The other place is probably in the shower, at night when you're having a shower and you're washing your day away, is actually becoming mindful for those moments in the shower with the water. Water is very cathartic. And I think that that's also a nurturing way for you. If you're doing some deep breathing, you're just trying to relax and you're just trying to come back to you, trying to feel within your heart space. I think that they're just like little gentle reminders. And I think the other thing is just being grateful. I think that's one thing that is very tricky for us. I think as part of our day routine, because it gets sold that we're supposed to write into a diary and we're supposed to write 3 to things down at the end of the day. And I don't know about anyone else, but I always find like I fall into bed and I'm like, oh my God, thank God that day's gone. But I'm kind of like, I've now started to sort of see things like my coffee as my sacred moment for me, and that I'm grateful that I can buy a coffee, for instance. And so it's kind of like my little luxury. And so I think if women can find those little things in their life, and if it doesn't have to be daily, but I think, ultimately the aim is to be daily, because once you find that, you actually regularly start to reprint your nervous system into an understanding, because you've got to start to create that feeling for your nervous system to remember what that feels like. If it's been a long time, your nervous system just doesn't do it naturally. You have to almost retrain it back into thinking that you're still safe, you're still okay. It needs to know that you're safe. And that's part of that ongoing sympathetic response with the nervous system, is that we're running around trying to make many decisions in our head and multitasking at the same time. So our nervous system is trying to work out, am I okay or am I not okay? And yet we would know we're okay, but our nervous system doesn't know that. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's very interesting. I find it fascinating.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, said that's so beautiful. And this is a so nice conversation with you. And if after this conversation, my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
Look, the best way, they can certainly look up the website. So I have EternalHer, is a website that I have, which has got multiple things on there. I've got a number of programs that people may want to engage in. There is a program that's only a month long with me, but it's like a weekly one-to-one conversation. And I feel, I think that's always a good place to start, because what they do is they develop the confidence to know whether they could relate to what I'm talking about and whether I could help them.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, that 4 weeks isn't a big deal. It's not a big chunk out of your life. And as much as I don't think much would change in a month, to be very honest, I think all I would like them to feel is to begin to start to see that woman in them again, the feminine within them, that beautiful person that's there, that is just underlying in so many layers that we've lost track.
Yeah.
I do have a blog that they are very welcome to subscribe to. I would love them to do that. That's sometimes a way for people to connect without actually having to commit to anything. And then obviously I have social media, which is also called EternalHer.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be beautiful.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all the details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you, because you are a wonderful person, and the way you explained everything, you shared your knowledge, your experience is so beautiful and commendable.
Thank
So I'm
you.
just honored to have you on my show. And Sharon, thank you for reminding us that women's wellness isn't just a conversation, it's a reclamation. And to all
Yes.
my listeners, your nervous system isn't broken, it's speaking. Slow down, listen in, and remember, your eternal glow is never lost. It's only waiting for your return. Until next time, keep reflecting what is true and sacred and whole, right here on the Soul Mirror. Thank you, Sharon. This is a wonderful conversation with you, and I'm very sorry for my sneezing problem. I just
That's
suddenly got, I got some allergy or something. I don't know. I didn't have that before. So I'm really really sorry for that.
No,
Uh,
that's perfectly fine. That was it was I thought, oh no, you poor thing.